Speaking of which, Johannesburg's housing crisis does persist, and with a large backlog forcing many residents to live in hijacked buildings. This is made worse then by issues with maintenance, repairs, basic services like water and electricity. Aldrin Sampear is now speaking to acting COO Puleng Mothebe from the Johannesburg Social Housing Company about their expectations for the State of the Nation address and potential solutions to this ongoing issue. Aldrin.
Arabile, thank you so much. Coming live to you from the city centre, but right now we are in Braamfontein. Some people would know this road as one of the vibey roads over the weekend, but it also speaks to this kaleidoscope of various cultures that come together here in the city, and also the pressure that it then puts on the city to ensure that there is accommodation for the people that are making their way to the golden apple, as some have described it, during the mining era, where we had gold being extracted from the mines here in Joburg. And if you look at that Census 2022 report, according to Census 2022 South Africa, it says that there are 17.8 million households here in the city of Joburg. It also then speaks about how this has been an increase, considering that in 2011 you had about 14 million people living here in the city. But then the problem also then becomes whether the city is able to provide the necessary services that are required. Remember, the city has also been plagued by hijacked buildings. There's a commission of inquiry to look into the extent around that, and then also how the city then responds through the Johannesburg Social Housing Company around some of these pressures. And joining me now, as you've indicated, is the acting COO of the Johannesburg Social Housing Company, Puleng Mothebe, who's joining us now live from the streets of Braam, a beautiful Braam this morning. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us. Speak to us quickly about the work that you do and what exactly it is that you're trying to respond to.
Thank you so much, Aldrin. As the Johannesburg Social Housing Company, also known as JoshCo, our sole mandate is to afford our citizens of the city of Joburg the affordable rental accommodation. So with that being said, our core mandate from the city is to show that the development and the management of the social housing within the city of Johannesburg to the qualifying tenants, because even with that being said, we have a selection criteria where we accommodate the resident within the city with a household income of 1,850 to 22,000. So obviously there will also be a vetting process for you to qualify to stay in one of our facilities. But basically the long story short is we provide the social housing, which is rental accommodation for the residents of the city of Johannesburg.
Yeah, I just touched on the census number and the number of people moving into Gauteng and moving into the city of Johannesburg specifically. The Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Department in 2023 said that there's currently a backlog of around 400,000 units in the city. As JoshCo, how then do you respond to those pressures around having to deliver a service, but obviously there's also a capex that is limited?
That's true. With that, obviously, it's always a juggling act between the needs on the ground as well as our financial muscles that we have. So we definitely try to prioritize in terms of our MTREF, which is the medium-term strategy with the city of Johannesburg to ensure that we plan for the social housing for the tenants of the city of Johannesburg. And with that being said, we do have, like you said, that there are limited resources, but we try to respond to the most of the critical or the pressure points where we know that we are trying to also redress the apartheid spatial planning. So we like you find yourself that we have more footprint in your areas of Soweto. But with that being said, those are not the only citizens that we try to cater for. We try to cater for everyone, for the city of Johannesburg at large, but again, everything else, unfortunately, is restricted by the budget that we get as the city. But with that being said, we also are in a space where we can apply for the grant, because we have the social regulator, which is SRA, where with our projects we're able to apply for their consolidated capital grant for those projects to also assist us in terms of delivering the social housing accommodation for the city of Johannesburg.
So today is the State of the Nation address. What would you like to hear from the President, specifically around some of the work that you do? I know in Kliptown, for instance, there was an incident where the residents there and the tenants had burned tires because The city of Joburg, City Water as well as City Power started cutting the unlawful connections there. And this goes back to that issue that the user pay principle. You use the water, you must pay for it.
That's true. That is true, Aldrin. Hence, we had to, as JoshCo, go there with City Power when they were doing their operation to show that we are not enablers of illegal activities, even on our own facilities, because the vandalism of infrastructure, it's something that as JoshCo ourselves, we are not going to enable such. So with that being said, even for the rental, the same applies. If ever you don't pay, unfortunately, you can't stay. So you need to make sure that you honor your obligations, and the same that goes with the services that are rendered by Johannesburg Water or even City Power. You cannot be going scot-free without paying for the facility, for the services that you use, because we are expected to render a service as the city, as well as we are hoping our tenants, our citizens can meet us halfway and making sure that they also
In that regard,
pay.
what would you like to hear from the President quickly?
From the President, I hope that he can, maybe from his bag of tricks, then we can get some more funding, especially in terms of making sure that we roll out more social housing, more rental affordable accommodation to the citizens of Gauteng and especially the city of Johannesburg.
Thank you so much for your time. Puleng Mothebe is the acting COO here at the Johannesburg Social Housing Company. As you heard, there's some of the concerns that they have, of course, relating to funding, but also this issue around the user pay principle. And we know Eskom has complained that the municipalities are owing them. But on the other end as well, the municipalities are also owed by residents, including residents owing them for water as well as electricity. Those are some of the basic services that the city is required to make sure that it is able to provide, but because sometimes residents don't pay, that becomes a problem.